Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a very damaging storm system that is currently occurring. Now, this is mainly the damage, if you will, right, and destruction and danger threat from this is occurring from the severe weather side of this storm. There is another concern of the amount of rain it will bring for certain areas that have been already seeing a lot of rain. But this threat really by tomorrow, so May 3rd, at the same time frame, 5 to 6 o'clock in afternoon Eastern and Central Time, the threat will be mainly over. It's really today that it's really at its peak. But then we have another storm system on Wednesday and Thursday that will bring a new threat. So, this isn't something to scare you guys, as this is really affecting a small area, so the chances that you will get impacted by this directly are small, but it's just to be aware. I think it's always something to, look at different events and how they unfold, so we could better prepare for other ones that may affect you sometime in the future. So, let's start talking about this right away. So, first off, do note that we do have this system right here. That is the one that's really the dangerous one for today's video, and it does look rather kind of not impressive. And that's the thing with these summer systems. I say summer even though it's still May, really early May, so it's really just mid-spring. But it's kind of a more summer characteristic storm in weather across the northern hemisphere. Really in the U.S., there is a rapid change from late spring into summer, where these systems stop becoming these massive beasts that always bring, tons of snow, rain, multifaceted systems. They could be very weak, but the consequences from their severe weather could be very strong. And sometimes it's just from daytime heat that these storms arrive. In this case, we do have a pretty broad area of low pressure. It is intensifying as we speak. And right here is where the severe weather threat is the highest. Into Oklahoma, there is actually a moderate issued. If you are familiar with the Storm Prediction Center, moderates aren't issued really too terribly often. Probably several times a year. They have been getting a bit more frequent as of the last few years. So it is a 4 out of 5 on the severity scale, and that 5 out of 5 is just the maximum. That is a absolutely concerning risk. Moderate though is definitely something that is also concerning, right? It's a 4 out of 5 again. It's a pretty small area, thankfully, though there are some large cities in here, mainly Tulsa, Enid, Enid, I don't know, I'm sorry, but you can see right there, there's the list of all the cities. And then, of course, larger cities like Oklahoma, Wichita in the 3 to 5, which is still a good risk. And notice that the tornado threat is high, especially across Oklahoma, and this is occurring right now. So later on, as this storm progresses, we will see more of a wind threat. And notice how this is also very, very high for large areas, but it's mainly later on once these storms develop into a line that is obviously going to be delivering a wind threat. Hail also significant, especially towards the beginning when these systems, when these storms are initially popping up. All right, let me show you what the future radar does with this system. So let me try zooming in on this region and showing you a bit more close up. Well, see, it kind of divides these two regions. Let me focus on the south central U.S., as this is where the real threat is. So notice this is 5 p.m. Pretty good representation of what is occurring. And this right now, 5, 6, 7 is the peak. So right after I upload this video of when the threat for tornadoes is the highest. There obviously could be some later on, but those that will be later on will probably be weak, short-lived, and honestly, probably not that many of them. At least that's the hope, right? And that's what the Storm Prediction Center thinks. But notice that right now, there is already a little squall line, right? The wind threat with that is obviously already pretty high, but notice that this thing grows pretty quickly, right? This is now 6, so within an hour, this thing continues to expand and develop into a almost very long line if it connects with the one from further up in Kansas. I do want to say that there are some spotted storms across Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas. These are isolated. They shouldn't be too severe, though. Obviously, if it's a more significant organized cell, there could be some hail, damaging wind, and obviously torrential rain. Though the tornado threat for these areas is pretty darn low. But obviously, it's always a possibility. So stay aware. Notice that by 7 p.m. it starts affecting the Oklahoma City metro. Really goes through the Oklahoma City area by 8 p.m. That's kind of where it's affecting. and this is where the wind threat is absolutely highest, especially towards the north. These storms will be, you can see a pretty well organized line, and these systems, these storms up here will be more developing into just a heavy rain threat, nothing too severe at this point. Though again, if you see the Storm Prediction Center, they do have a slight there at this time frame, so that that could still mean obviously torrential rain, flooding on the roadways and whatnot, and of course very strong winds still possible, and some hail, which obviously is a pretty big concern, as hail covers a lot more than, I say, a tornado will, right? A tornado, if it goes through an area and if it's a strong tornado, right, then it just devastates that area. But hail, maybe it doesn't devastate a single area right to the same length as a tornado does, to the same extent, but it does so to a whole, it could do that to a whole little community or village, with a bit less damage, but broken windows, broken or shattered kind of I guess roofs and their tiles and whatnot. Just it's still a very costly event, hailstorms, and of course wind as well. Notice, without further ado, we as we push this on, this line up here, while it is weakening, at least the northern part into Kansas City, the southern part still has a pretty good chance of developing some nasty storms again. Wind, hail, a tornado's possibility, but it's small. Though it's this main one right here that's really concerning. Notice as it starts dragging towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area, towards late at night. So again, most people are asleep. It's just north. I don't know precisely where Dallas is on here, as they're usually, with big cities like New York City, it's kind of right on that little armpit of Long Island. This one, I know it's generally here. I don't know exactly which county, but notice it does get at least towards the suburbs, if not a lot of the city. And again, that's going to be hard to see whether or not that actually clips you guys. And do note that this thing, as it spills into Arkansas, southeastern Oklahoma, the wind threat is still high. But again, the rain threat is diminished. The hail threat is diminished. At that point, it's mainly a wind threat. And you can see they do extend that enhanced and a even slight all the way into central Arkansas. So that is that storm. And, again, as I said, by tomorrow, even early in the morning, threat from this system is pretty much gone. And I do want to say that it's still going to be occurring, the system, across the United States, really further north though into Illinois, Indiana, Michigan. Again, mainly just a rain threat, could be heavy at times, and while this may look pretty benign, it is a concern, because a lot of these areas, I know my area has gotten quite a bit of rain, and in the past a few events, and that could definitely cause some ponding. I do know areas in, say, northern Indiana, Ohio aren't as wet, so they could take that rain. I think it was actually drier the April. I was looking at a regional map just a few minutes ago. But regardless, rain definitely could just hamper your commute, make it slower and whatnot. And notice, right, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Missouri, picking up good amounts of rain, and this is even through the whole event. If I were to show you the whole entirety of the system as it moves away, you could see it drops rain into Michigan, right, Ohio, even some 2-inch amounts. But by the time Wednesday comes around, you could see many areas 1 inch to 1.5 inches, even 2 inches, definitely not out of the question. And as I push this into the northeast, I do want to show you that through the time frame it gives us, so 48 hours out. And if I show you the radar imagery of this thing, it's pretty much out of here. This is Wednesday afternoon. You can see that it does drop a little bit of rain and some scattered storms, potentially some severe across really, especially Ohio, maybe into Pennsylvania, West Virginia, but these are going to be pretty baby compared to the ones across Oklahoma today, right? And again, maybe the biggest threat probably at around late Tuesday into early Wednesday, where it peaks, and then afterwards this thing's out of here. And a bit of rain again for the northeast. Nothing too incredible. Definitely something though that could be used. I know I'm not too particularly sure on the hydrologic issue there, but I don't think it's been too awfully wet there. Maybe not dry, but also not just awfully wet. All right, without further ado, let's take a look, because this is today's threat, right? And again, I want to show you that it is a moderate, so it's high. You can see categorical wind. The wind one is really, really high. But let's see where the risk is tomorrow, right? And again, as I mentioned, it's really across Ohio, Pennsylvania, right there, portions of Kentucky. That's where it peaks. You can see though it's not as significant, right? It's only a 2 out of 5, so that's that's half as likely to be severe as the moderate if you were to put it in a linear scale. And I do believe it is pretty linear. 2 out of 5 versus a 4 out of 5, and notice that the tornado threat is just really low. Obviously, there's a chance, as with any really big organized storm, but again, it's just not too favorable. 2% percent chance of occurring within that area for any given area. The wind is substantially higher, which again it makes a lot more sense. And the hail is also a decently there, though again. The main thing with the hail bringing its kind of, I guess, damage up is just the area that it covers, but not necessarily its likelihood for any specific area. Wednesday, as I mentioned, we have two systems, right? One after the other. Wednesday, again, a very similar area. Now it could be affecting Oklahoma City. Again, this is an enhanced already 3 days out. So this could expand to be a larger area, and if things are looking, ripe like they were today, there could be a moderate issue. I assume for a small area similar to today, but do note that for that area, the biggest threat, or well, they don't show the different threats yet, but they show that the severe probability again peaks across this area, and if it does get into that 45 range, that's where the issue that moderate. Thursday, again, already enhanced, and that's very far out. This day may be a moderate, again, pretty far to the south, good moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. That is definitely a concern, and let me show you how that looks on the radar or a simulated model. So I want to take you to the GFS, as this is that system that's occurring right now. It pulls away, and look, as I push this forward, right, the first day, Oklahoma, quite a bit of rain, quite a bit of severe weather threat, but really, I think it peaks late Wednesday. Notice we have these individual cells that the GFS tries painting out. It's pretty sloppy because it's a long-range model, so it doesn't do too good of a job, but it does its best. And notice that it does transition more into heavy rain threat as you push into Missouri, Kansas. Again, very similar areas getting affected again, so if you get, blasted by a storm that drops 2 inches of rain across Kansas today or Missouri, you may have some flooding issues, to say the least. And do note that, if you recall, on Thursday, they showed that severe weather threat across the south, right? Obviously, rain towards the north. Again, really more of the non-severe kind. But look, right here, we have an explosive event that, again, late Thursday into early Friday, well, really mainly late Thursday, evening Thursday. Again, this definitely could be a moderate. Even if it's enhanced, it's still a risk that is high and definitely should be taken with quite a bit of precautions, especially now. It's May. A lot more people are outside than normally would be during, maybe 2 months ago to 3 months ago when we saw these severe weather outbreaks. So definitely a higher risk for lightning incidences, hail incidences, any danger that comes with severe weather, flying debris, maybe not even from a tornado, just from straight line wind damage. And notice that the system does meander around for quite a bit, produce some heavy rain across, again, very similar areas. More heavy rain into the northeast this time. Again, potentially another severe weather day on Friday, though the Storm Prediction Center is still unsure about that. Notice across the Carolinas and the southern eastern seaboard, and this thing pulls away very slowly, though, and stays rainy for a good portion. Now, if you recall, yesterday I was talking about a system that was, massive, kind of unlike these two, that, are big, but look at this one right here, and the models are still showing it. Look, so it comes in, right? A lot of snow, a lot of rain for the Midwest. That is good news. They are in a drought. This is definitely going to help out quite a bit. Notice the Dakotas. A lot of these areas are just getting pounded by rain over and over again. Look how strong this wind flow is. Do you see that? This, again, it's still relatively far out, but though not super far out. This is driving air straight from the southwest and Gulf of Mexico. What does this mean? Well, it has ample moisture. As much moisture pretty much as it wishes for. So this thing comes in several waves. Notice this disappears, goes again. And yes, this is definitely concerning. We saw this yesterday, and the models are still showing this threat for just massive cold front that develops potentially for several days, right, in a row. You can see this time it's further back west. And because of all this air rushing towards the north, we will see potentially very, very warm conditions. On the backside, we do have very cool conditions, but that's not as concerning because it's the west. Not because it's the west, but the west, they'd rather take some cooler conditions at this time than warmer conditions, the drought, whatnot, wildfires, right? So that's why this is definitely more concerning, as the winds will be strong. Brush fires are going to be a pretty strong risk. and I want to click on a 2 meter temperature shaded. So again, this is far out, right? Nothing to do with the current systems, if you will, but definitely not too far out to start talking about this. And notice Texas, Oklahoma, look at that 90s, right? That is perfect conditions, especially with that strong wind from the south, to create some brush fires, or maybe even some forest fires across areas that are more forested. Again, notice 70s all the way into southern Canada. Pretty nice, I guess, if you want 70s this time of the year. You will definitely be getting them next week. Yeah, you can see that a lot of this is just sticks around, this warm air. It's not a quick, I guess, pump and go with a lot of systems that do that when they're progressive. This one stays on for a while, continues producing these batches of precip. A bit cooler, you could see here, right? It brings in some cooler air. We'll have to see what exactly the models do after that. But one thing we don't want to do is get hung up on details, right? So this is the one from noon. The same GFS, you could see it kept showing that system occurring across the west. I mean, Colorado could get so much rain from this. Nebraska, right? I mean, it just sticks around for a while before finally moving out. So the threat is there for a storm and some really incredible, potentially precipitation amounts across areas that actually kind of do need it. So that is good news. I mean, you could see all of Wyoming potentially under 2 to 4 inches of rain. That would be good news. Maybe a bit too much, right? But they're in a drought, so long term, that definitely wouldn't be bad. Snowfall would be there, though. Probably not catastrophic for low-lying areas, as it will be just too warm for significant accumulations. Higher areas, yes, but again, less people live up there, so that's pretty much a benefit, if you will, a net benefit in my eyes. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that. And in terms of the 2 meter temperature anomaly, notice that, right? We do have that very warm air across the east with this system and cooler across the west, but that doesn't stay along for too long. And notice that there's some concerning signs that there could be a heat wave that comes after that across the west. Hopefully not, but definitely something to watch for. As if you recall, last year we had the last few years really just these heat waves across the west and southwestern Canada that have become more frequent, and we have to keep an eye on. Canadian model, a good model, right? I like it, and let me show you what it shows in terms of its precipitation outlook. So again, we have these first two systems that I already talked about. Those are occurring. Well, the first one is occurring today with that damage, right, and that wind threat, and the second one will be occurring potentially with more damage on Thursday and into Friday, and it's sticking around. Really, gets off the coast up until Sunday, so it sticks around for a while. But while those two systems are leaving, look, we have this massive rain shield that moves in with several storms, several spinning vortices, and this sets the stage for just these large conglomerates of rain, snow, depending on which model you look at. Very, very cold air for California at this time of the year, potentially. The Canadian likes to show a bit kind of extreme anomalies, usually more extreme than actually occurs, so that's why I don't like this model too much for its temperature outlooks. But in terms of its individual storm tracks, it's actually done a pretty stellar job this past few years. And look, it develops again a system, a very, very good moisture transport. I mean, look at that, right? A lot of moisture, very kind of almost a classic winter-like storm, pretty late in the season. And what the Canadian does, again, where it shows extremely cold, it shows extremely hot. So yes, this would probably be not really realistic. You can see that I'm kind of saying that because I don't really want this to be realistic. This would be just way too hot, right? I mean, we've had such a cool spring, and of course, typical Midwest fashion goes from being a cool April to 90s and 80s. Again, this model is extreme in what it does, so I'm not too convinced about that. But very cold for California if this were to occur. A lot of people would be shivering, and people will definitely be loud about that, as it doesn't happen too often there in California. And whatever weather does happen in California, people are always loud about that because they're not used to it, right? It's not as common to see extremes there as much as we do here, and really anywhere else in the country. Northeast, it's blizzards. The South, it's hurricanes. And Midwest, it's temperature swings and severe weather. California does have its fair share of the extreme droughts and wildfires, but that usually stays more secluded to areas that aren't awfully populated, at least for now. Hopefully it will continue doing that. Notice that with the European model, we do have again that system today. It does move away gradually. Again, that threat is highest today into tonight, though tomorrow across Ohio Valley, portions of Kentucky, definitely there as well. Then we have that second system again, very similar areas across the south getting impacted. But then Thursday we have a very concerning day on across the south right here into portions of Arkansas. It does move away eventually. The system, though, much slower, and we start taking a look at this monster, which again at this point the European does show as well. All of them do. All three models, and notice this thing it really does bring in a lot of cold air. So this is why I'm really confident about it, because if you see the European, Canadian, GFS all agreeing on something extreme in terms of the temperature anomalies, you begin to be like, oh, okay, this is probably gonna happen. Just exactly how, what, and where, right? Notice Tuesday, May 10th. Again, if you recall, the Canadian showed 90s, the European a bit less, 80s. That's more realistic, definitely a possibility. Though really just chilly temperatures for the West. Again, not the worst of news. Crops haven't been planted yet for I think the areas that are still in risk of frost. Obviously, the San Joaquin Valley, you won't be seeing frost, though you will be seeing cool weather. So the cool weather, probably a good thing, right? The drought, I guess, will be kind of held off at bay, if you will, less evaporation temporarily. Just trying to find silver linings here, right? Because when looking at this, you can only really assume a few bad things. Definitely, this is more concerning for the Midwest because of potentially the severe weather threat with such hot and moist conditions, and also with just brush fires, which could be damaging as well. And notice the European does really keep this heat wave in here for a while, and the cool wave, if you will, the cold outbreak on the other side. So let me show you the system. So look, we start this Sunday. We go forward pretty quickly, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and look how long this system is. It's still there. I mean, you can't even call it one system. It's so many different low pressures. It's just one conglomerate of activity, if you will. And as long as this ridge or this extreme trough across the west and ridge across the east stays, we just see this moisture transport, fueling storms, activity, severe weather, and just warmth. Again, 2-meter temperature shaded, pretty far out. You can see it stays warm. So again, typical stuff where you go from a heat wave or from a cold spring here in my area to an unbearable heat wave. Yeah, what do you expect, right? So it's definitely a growing possibility. This thankfully, if this were to occur, a heat wave of this magnitude in July would be a lot worse. So hopefully this kind of gets out its anger in May before it really does its damage in July. And I guess the cold is colder since it is May, right? So that could be a concern for areas that don't want the cold there. Again, the silver lining with all of this is that there could be quite a bit of precipitation for areas across the West and really the Midwest, even where the drought is or where the heat is, right? A lot of these areas will see a lot of rain, so shouldn't be too bad if the drought doesn't last for too long. Okay, that is basically it. That is also pretty much all I wanted to cover, and yeah, I'll catch you all on the next episode. We have a lot of stuff to be going over. Obviously, for the most up-to-date information, National Weather Service is the best. But for just if you want to watch a live stream that's really good and supports the weather community, Ryan Hall, he streams on all these severe weather threats every day or anytime there is one. So I really recommend his channel. And it's very high quality. He has storm chasers, really good layout. So go watch him. And he again, stays in touch with all the sources that are necessary, and you'll definitely be safe if you're watching his channel. He'll tell you what to do. All right, guys. So that is basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have a lot of activity going on, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.